How's it going, guys? Jazzy here yet again with another divisional breakdown in 3 and D basketball. Today we'll be looking at the Southeast Division as we migrate to the Eastern Conference, as we have already cleared out the West. So the Southeast has really seen a lot of movement in this offseason. Most notably, Giannis Antetokounmpo joining the Miami Heat, and then Paul George and Nikola Jokic joining the Atlanta Hawks. So two teams there that really got a lot better and really inserted themselves as the favorites to come out of the Eastern Conference. But then we also have teams like the Washington Wizards, the Orlando Magic, and the Charlotte Hornets, all of them really made strides as well in this offseason and really improved, I think, tenfold. So really, this division has seen a lot of improvement in this offseason. So it'll be interesting to see how it shakes out, as really all of them have the talent to be playoff teams. But we'll just see if that comes to fruition or if there's any chemistry problems with any teams going on. So starting out, we have the Washington Wizards. The Wizards were last in the Eastern Conference at 1-26. So they really struggled last season to gain a footing in the league, despite having some decent talent in guys like Bradley Beal, John Wall, Rui Hachimura, Thomas Bryant, and a few others as well. And they bring back the majority of their core. And then they also added a few young, intriguing prospects as well that could really have a big impact for them right out of the gate. But first, we'll take a look at Brad Beal here. Beal is he's an outstanding scorer. And one of the really elite volume shooters in the league today. He can get a shot off at pretty much any time that he wants it. He is a little undersized at that two-guard spot. He's just 6'3", but his shooting ability and scoring ability on the offensive end definitely makes up for any defensive issues that could come, thanks to his lack of size at that 2 or even 3 spot if they want to play some small ball. So Beal comes back. He still has another year on his deal where he's making $34.5 million this year, and then he has a player option for next year at $37.26 million. Which I imagine he will most likely opt into, but he could also opt out and try and go for a more long-term payday, as he is just entering his prime. He'll be 29 this season, or at least by the end of this season. So hopefully Washington can lock him down long term and keep some of their young guys as well, because Beal is he's a stud, man. Like he's a great scorer. Every single team in the league would want Brad Beal on their squad. But the question is, can he be the top guy? Not even only on a contender, but at this point, can he be the top guy for a playoff team? We really have yet to see that. Really, the last time the Wizards made a huge splash in the playoffs, John Wall was their number one guy, and John Wall's getting paid $44.3 million this year, and then a player option for next season at $47.37 million. And he's entering his 30s, and a guy with the athleticism that John Wall brings to the table. You wonder when that athleticism is going to drop off. You remember he had the Achilles injury in 2019, so didn't really play in season 1 of 3 and D. But he came back last season, put up about 15 and 6 a game, shooting 45.2% from the floor, which is a career high for him, but just 29% from 3. So if the athleticism drops off for John Wall, you really hope that he can add to his game offensively and become a better, at least more efficient shooter. He doesn't need to be Steph Curry or Dame Lillard out there on the perimeter. But he needs to be able to knock down open shots and keep the defenses honest, because he's still a pretty solid slasher, and he really thrives in the mid-range game. Uh, but if he can't shoot threes at a consistent level, defenses are going to sag off, and they're gonna try and protect that drive. Um, Really, a guy like Wall needs that 3-point shot, so that way guys can close out on him, and he can attack those closeouts with that excellent explosiveness that he brings. Also returning to the Wizards is Thomas Bryant. Thomas Bryant, just 24 years old, still a bright future ahead of him. He's kind of in the same vein as Miles Turner, where he's a pretty solid shot blocker and rim protector in his own right. But he can come down on the other end and provide excellent floor spacing at that 5 spot. And really, he's a pretty solid athlete as well. He can finish at the rim. He goes up strong. And he's a very good rebounder at his size, too. Last season, he put up only 7 and 6 a game. The season before that, he was at 10 and almost 11 a game. So you hope that he can kind of get back into the double digits for both his points and his rebounds. Because really, this guy could be a walking double and shoot roughly like 50, 35, and 75 from the floor. So you hope that Thomas Bryant can keep adding to his game and just really round out his on-court performance and become a more consistent player for the Wizards. He will be a restricted free agent, I believe, at the end of this season. He is making $8.67 million this year, but they do have his bird rights, so they can lock him down. And this is a guy that they're going to want to build around, especially defensively, with him in the middle. So it'll be interesting to see how Thomas Bryant can keep improving and growing. As he is just 24 years old, he should be getting a lot better. So joining the Wizards was the 5th overall pick of this year's draft, Jonathan Kuminga. Kuminga is a big body at 6'9", 220. Kind of has some striking similarities to Rui Hachimura, in that they're both tweener forwards where they can play either the 4 or the 3 spot. Really not sure yet which one each guy should really play. Kuminga, in my opinion, should be the 3, just because I think he's the better athlete on the perimeter. Hachimura is a little bit more of a bigger body, and Kuminga has a little more finesse in his game, so I think he should be slotted at that 3 spot with Hachimura at the 4. But really, they're both pretty interchangeable. But Kuminga, he has very high expectations in Washington. He's one of the elite prospects of this year's absolutely stacked draft class. He's a tremendous athlete at 6'9", really one of the fastest players at the forward spot in the league already. So you hope that he can really use that athleticism to make a name for himself pretty early for the Wizards. His game is pretty well-rounded at this point. You hope that he can keep growing his jump shot and become a more respectable shooter from behind the arc. But even if that doesn't happen, he still has the athleticism and the ball skills to really become a pretty dominant force in this league. And he's just 18 years old, so he's going to be figuring it out along the way. He has some pretty good mentors to learn from in John Wall and Brad Beall, as well as Marc Gasol down low. Gasol comes back for the Wizards. So really, those three guys can really mentor Jonathan Kuminga and help him out in his rookie season. But as mentioned before, Rui Hachimura does return to the Wizards. This is another guy that they have high hopes for. He was taken with the 9th pick of 2019 out of Gonzaga. Had a very solid rookie season, putting up 14.5 points a game along with 6 rebounds, shooting almost 50% from the floor. The three ball really hasn't been there yet for Hachimura. But he does have good mechanics on his jump shot, so you're hoping that he can really add that three ball to his arsenal. If he does that, he can really become a bona fide stud for this Wizards squad, because he can already score inside the arc almost at will. He's a deadly mid-range shooter. And again, this is another guy with very solid athleticism for a guy his size. Not quite the athlete that Kuminga is, but he does have a bigger body, and he uses that inside to his advantage on both offense and defense. So he is entering his 3rd season. He's on the books for this year at $4.92 million, and then next year the team option for $6.26 million. So he should be around for a while for this Wizards team. Washington also brought back Troy Brown Jr., making $5.17 million this season, and he's another guy that's been improving every single year. He got up to 7 points and 4 rebounds a game last season, as well as 2.5 assists. So he's really been working on his skill set and his playmaking abilities. He's a pretty solid shooter along the perimeter, not a lights out guy, but he can get it done for you if he's wide open. And then defensively, he comes down and he's a very solid team defender. Not the most reliable one-on-one guy, but he definitely knows his way around the defensive end, and uses his strong defensive IQ to really make a difference and help defense for his teammates. So I imagine, I'm not sure if they would start Kuminga or Hachimura, or both of them. I think they would be best off if they had Hachimura come off the bench for them as that 6th man. Just come off the bench and get ready to score. Because he could be a walking mismatch at that 4 spot off the bench for them, getting around 26, 28 minutes a game. I just feel that Troy Brown Jr. really provides a lot on the defensive end, and he's really a good fit next to John Wall and Brad Beal, thanks to his shooting ability and his perimeter defense. Really, when you have Beal and Wall in the backcourt already, starting in the backcourt, you really don't need another playmaker at that 3 spot, or really that dynamic of a scorer at that 3 spot either. So I think Troy Brown really can step in at that 3 spot and become a pretty solid 3-and-D player for the Wizards. Next returning is Col Anthony. He was taken with the 10th pick of the 2020 draft. Had a pretty strong rookie showing last year, putting up about 10 and 3.5 assists per game. Shot about 41.7% from the floor and 23% from 3. So this is another young wizard that you hope can keep adding to that jump shot and become a reliable threat from deep. Again, he has good mechanics on his jumper, so really the expectation for him is that he can become about a 35-36% guy from deep. And they have high hopes for Col Anthony still. He was the 10th pick of last year, so he still has a lot of upside. He's just 21 years old, out of North Carolina. And again, this is another guy that can learn a lot from John Wall. He'll be backing up Wall yet again this season, and he could even play some 2-guard next to John Wall, or he can play the 1 next to Brad Beal in certain lineups, or even play with both in certain lineups. We'll see. But the hope there for Anthony is that he can really become a solid starter for the Wizards in the long term. For now, he's going to be sitting behind John Wall and soaking up as much as he can behind him. And then also returning, we have Moe Vogner. Wagner was the 25th pick of 2018 to the LA Lakers, and then he was traded after his rookie season to Washington, where really he had a pretty standout year, putting up almost 11 points and 6 rebounds a game, starting for the Wizards. Last season he fell off a little bit, only putting up 8.7 points and 7.3 boards, so he did improve on the glass. But really, the hope for him is that he can become one of the elite stretch big men in the league. Even if he doesn't provide a whole lot aside from shooting and rebounding, that's still a very valuable player to have. He is 6'11", 245, so he has great size. He can play either the 5 or the 4 position, and I imagine they could see Wagner really pairing well with guys like Hachimura, Kuminga, and even Thomas Bryant in a front court. Wagner is on a $3.89 million deal for this season, and then he'll be a restricted free agent after this season is over. So Washington is going to have to try to find a way to pay him. They are giving big money to Brad Beall and John Wall already. So they might have some decisions to make here. They did just pay Doug McDermott this offseason. And then Jordan Mccray also is on a 2-year, $17 million deal. So in order to keep guys like Moe Vogner, Troy Brown Jr., and then in the future Hachimura, Col Anthony, and Kuminga, and Thomas Bryant, who is expiring after this season, they might end up having to move one of Wall or Beall if they can find a suitor to take one of them. Of course, they could go into the luxury tax, but it's all up to the ownership and whether or not they wish to pay that luxury tax. And if they come out struggling again, as they did last season, it's going to be kind of hard to justify keeping the team intact and keeping those vet guys in Wall and Beall while also paying your young players who are expiring, because then you'll be in the luxury tax and really paying a ton of money for a team that might not make the playoffs. So we'll see how that shakes out for them. But as I mentioned, they do bring in Doug McDermott on a 2-year, $16 million deal. He does have a player option for a third deal at $8.64 million. What McDermott brings to the table is elite shooting, and really that's about it. He's just a lights out shooter, doesn't really do a whole lot else on the floor. He can score in the post a little bit using that size, but for the most part his value is going to be sitting behind the arc, spacing the floor out for Wall and Beall, and just shooting any kickouts that he may get. So really that's a decent pickup for the Wizards. I'm not sure if he's worth the price, but if you're a team like Washington and you're struggling, you might have to overpay to try and get some talents to come to you, which is basically what they did with McDermott here. Even though he is a bit of an overpay, I think he can have a pretty solid impact for this Wizards team. So also returning to the Wizards is Jordan Mccray. He does have 2 years left on his contract at about $8.5 million per. So Mccray is another lights out shooter. He does have some playmaking ability at that 2-guard spot, and the hope with Mccray, I mean, he's 30 years old already, just been in the league for 5 years, going into his 6th season now. So this is kind of it for Mccray. We'll see if he can drastically improve his game at 30 years old to try and get one last big paycheck once his time is up in Washington. But really, that remains to be seen. He has a lot of talent in front of him in the rotation. So barring injury, I don't think Mccray is going to be that heavy of an impact player for the Wizards. But then returning and rounding out the roster, you have Marc Gasol. Gasol was the 18th pick of the second round in 2007. He's 36 years old, going into now his 14th season in the league, and really, he's hanging around. Still a fairly productive player. He's still a terrific defender inside and can shoot that three ball pretty well for a center. So there's still some value here for Gasol as a 3 and D specialist. It's a little weird having a 3 and D specialist at the 5, especially when he really can't rebound at even an average level. So Gasol, he is getting about 7, I believe, yeah, 7 million this season, and then he'll be expiring. So we'll see what happens with Gasol after this year. He does look like he is losing a step or two or three with the Wizards here. So we'll see if he keeps his career going after this season. He hasn't mentioned anything yet about retiring, but as we all know, it could happen any day in the NBA. So then finally we have young prospects Keontae Johnson, Paul Ibua, and Andrew Nembhard. So those are 3 young guys. One was undrafted in Keontae Johnson. The other 2 were second rounders of this draft, and really they're just here to learn and hopefully grow into productive role players for the Wizards. So Washington, really, you hope that they can make some strides toward becoming a playoff team this season. I'm not sure if it's going to happen overnight for them, but they do have the talent to make it to the playoffs. We'll just see if they can put it all together here and make some strides toward becoming that team. And next here we have the Orlando Magic, who narrowly missed the playoffs last season in the Eastern Conference. They're hoping to get back to the playoff race behind the backs of Jonathan Isaac and Nikola Vukovich. Isaac comes back on a 5-year max contract for the Magic. He's making $134 million in his first 4 years, and then he has a player option for almost $40 million in 2025. So he's getting paid, but really it's a great contract for Orlando, excuse me, because what Isaac brings to the table, he's blossoming into a great scorer at that 3 or 4 spot. He's 6'11", 230 pounds, which is very rare to see at the 3 spot. But not only his size, but he's a tremendous athlete in his own right, and really one of the premier defenders in the league. He can guard inside, outside, he can block shots, he can get steals in passing lanes. He was very close to Defensive Player of the Year last season, where he had over 1.5 steals and 1.5 blocks a game. So Isaac is one of the best difference makers on both ends of the floor. So hopefully he can make it to the All-Star game. I believe it would be his first career All-Star appearance. And if he keeps growing and adding to his game, especially offensively, I don't think he should really have any problem making it to the All-Star game, because this guy is one of the elite defenders in the NBA today, and really there's nobody that he can't guard. He can guard 1 through 5 really. So the main thing with Isaac is you hope that he can keep adding to that jumper and also get stronger as a player as well, because he is still a little thin, even though he is 230 pounds. Most of that's in his tremendously long wingspan. So Isaac really still has the potential to keep growing. He's just 23 years old, entering his fifth season in the NBA. So he's a very young guy. He was the sixth pick of the 2017 draft, and they're hoping for some more development out of him as the years go by. So then also returning is Nikola Vucevic. Vucevic's numbers have fallen off a little bit the past two seasons compared to what he was putting up in Orlando previously. You see, he had that career year of almost 21 and 12 a game in 2019, with almost 4 assists as well. He was shooting over 50% from the floor. So you hope that Vuce can get back to that efficiency. You see, last season he only shot 41% from the floor, which isn't very good at all for a big man. But he still has the inside touch and presence to be one of the elite scoring big men in the NBA today. And he does have a great jump shot along the perimeter, so he's a very versatile guy. He can pick and pop, pick and roll, score in the low post, score in the high post, play make for others in the post. This guy is one of the truly elite offensive big men in the league. Just has had a down year or two, so you hope that he can get back to his previous form of about 20 points a game, 10 rebounds, and about 4 assists, because he really still has the ability to do so. He's 30, entering his 11th season in the NBA, so he's in his prime right now. So the hope there for Vucevic is that he can get back to his previous form. But also returning is Markelle Fultz. Fultz signed a offer sheet, the qualifying offer with the Magic for 1 year, 3.92 million. So he's taken a bit of a gamble on himself. And Fultz is really an athletic specimen at the point guard spot. He's 6'3", 210. And a great athlete. The jump shot still isn't quite there yet from what we saw at Washington in his college years, or college year, I should say. But he is 23 and still just getting better every single season. And he's actually a pretty solid scorer in the mid-range game as well. But the hope is that he can become a much better shooter from behind the arc and provide guys like Isaac and Vucevic that spacing that they need to really thrive inside the paint. But what you love about Fultz is his playmaking ability and his defense along the perimeter. He's a great two-way player, and like I said, still 23, entering his fifth season, so he still has a lot of room to improve as well. But also returning, we have Gary Harris. Harris was traded from the Nuggets to the Magic for Aaron Gordon. Really kind of has had a down year last season. He only shot 35.5% and then 31% from behind the arc. Harris, he's pretty intriguing. He had that 1 year in Denver in 2018 where he put up 17.5 points per game and shot almost 50, 40, 80, 83 from the floor, the three-point line, and the free throw line, respectively. So he really looked like one of the up-and-coming young two guards in the NBA, but then injuries kind of derailed him a little bit in Denver, and now he finds himself on a Magic team that really needs a scoring guard at that two-guard spot. And Harris can still score, but you hope that the efficiency comes back for him. And he's also a tremendous defender on the other side of the ball as well. So Harris remains a good fit in Orlando. With this squad, he can play next to Markelle Fultz without any issues thanks to his shooting ability. But like I said, the efficiency needs to come back in order for Harris to maximize his value. He is in expiring contract after this season. You see he's making $20 million a year, or $20 million this year, and then he'll be expiring. If he has another down year, it might be worth it for Orlando to re-up and bring him back on a discount deal. Otherwise, a team might be able to scoop him up, and he could regain form and get back to about 16, 17 points a game as a starter with his excellent defense as well. So it'll be interesting to see what Orlando plans to do with Harris moving forward. But joining the Magic in this offseason is Goran Dragic. Dragic is he's a very skilled veteran point guard. He can play the one or the two for you, um, and it's a far cry from his Miami years when he was putting up 20 points a game, 17 points a game, where he was an all-star for a season. His numbers have fallen off a little bit. He bounced around a bit. He was traded from the Heat to the Pelicans, and then from the Pelicans to the Magic last season. So they get a full season of Dragic backing up Markelle Fultz, and I think Dragic can really help Fultz out with that jumper and become a more reliable threat from deep. So Dragic, a great veteran to have in the locker room and on the floor. We'll see if they hang on to him using that team option for $10 million next season. He will be 36, so his game could be falling off a bit as he keeps aging. But then also coming back, you have Terrence Ross. He's making $24 million in the next 2 years, $12.5 million this season, and then $11.5 next season. And he's in the prime of his career as well. When this guy is on and feeling it, he's one of the toughest players to guard in the NBA, thanks to his shooting ability and his absolute explosiveness. I mean, this guy is a tremendous dunker, and he can score inside and in the mid-range as well as spot up from three. So Ross still a tremendous asset to have. He is a bit of an overpay for them right now, but like I said, if this guy gets on, there's just no stopping him. So a guy like that's always going to have a spot in the league, and it just so happens to be with the Magic, where he's been for the past few years. Then also you have Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. KCP joined the Magic, I believe, this offseason. No, he played a bit for them last year as well, and averaged about 12 a game. So he does have 2 years left on his contract, with next year being a player option for $9.8 million. So he comes at a pretty decent value for them for what he brings to the table. His defense is falling off a little bit, but he is entering the prime of his career, so you hope that the scoring remains there as he keeps going into his late 20s. Also joining through the draft is Ziyarah Williams out of Stanford. Williams was taken with the 12th pick of this year's draft, and he's a big body at that 3 spot. He's 6'9", 210 pounds, kind of in the same mold as Jonathan Isaac. So they're hoping that they can keep Williams on that trajectory that Isaac was on, that eventually has brought Isaac to a Defensive Player of the Year caliber player, as well as potentially an all-star player. So Williams does have a ton of upside at that 3 spot. He's very athletic for his size, and he's a pretty decent defender already. So I think he could be a pretty strong impact player for this Magic team right out of the gate. I don't think he's going to be in contention for Rookie of the Year, just because I don't think the raw offensive numbers will be there yet, because his offensive game is pretty raw still. But defensively, he's going to be a difference maker for this Magic team. And then joining in free agency this season is Kyle Anderson. He joined on a 3-year deal. The first 2 years he will get $13.5 million, and then he has a player option for $7.22 million in 2023. So this is another guy that's entering his prime. really he is what he is at this point, and that's a decent team defender and a pretty solid playmaker at that 4 spot. He's kind of a point forward. The jump shot never really came along for Kyle Anderson. He can hit in some spots, but he's not exactly the most reliable shooter from deep. But Anderson, he's a pretty solid pickup for his cost, and like I said, he's entering his prime, so he could still have a solid role with this Magic team. And then rounding out the bench, we have Moe Bomba. Bomba was the 6th pick of 2018, and his game still is still very raw. He's developing. He has added some weight to his frame. He's up to 231 at 7 foot tall. And this guy has the longest arms in the NBA. He broke Rudy Gobert's combine record for the longest standing reach. So the physical credentials are there for Moe Bomba. It's just a matter of putting it together and becoming an elite defender on the defensive end. Because really, his game is pretty solid. This guy can shoot threes at a decent rate. He shot only 21% from 3 last season, but he did shoot 30% from 3 in his rookie year with Orlando, so you hope that he can get back up to 30% or better from deep if he's going to be taking those shots on a consistent basis. But Bomba still has a ton of room to grow, and he's still very young. He's only 23 years old, so we'll see what happens with him after this season. As he enters his 4th year in the league, he will be a restricted free agent after the season is over, so they will be having to pay him or potentially let him walk, depending on the cost. And then we have Tyreese Maxie, taken with the 19th pick of the 2020 draft. Really didn't see a whole lot of playing time for the Magic in his rookie season. Really struggled to get onto the floor, and a big part of it is his questionable defense. This guy, he can score at a pretty solid level. Last season, he really didn't get the minutes to get into a rhythm and find his shot. As you can see, he only shot 11% from 3, but again, he played very limited minutes. He was only 1 for 9 from the 3-point line, and he only played 5 minutes a game. So the hope with Maxie is that he can improve a bit this summer through training camp and just working on his game during the summer, and he could come back as a pretty solid bench piece for this Magic squad. But then rounding out the roster, you have Chuma Okeke. Not sure how to pronounce this dude's name, but he was taken with the 16th pick of 2019, and he's at about 5 points a game and 3 rebounds a game last year. Didn't see any time in 2019, the year that he was drafted, so he could really keep growing and developing into a decent role player for the Magic. Then we also have Chick Diallo. He is coming back to the Magic, and then Rodney McGruder rounds out the bench for them. He's a decent veteran presence with a pretty solid jumper in defense as well, so he could see some playing time in case of emergency. So again, this is a pretty solid Magic roster with a lot of youth still in Jonathan Isaac, Markelle Fultz, Gary Harris, and then Ziyarah Williams and Moe Bomba, as well as Tyreese Maxie. So the young core is there. They still have a good mix of veterans in Nikola Vukovich, Goran Dragic, Terrence Ross, and Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, and now Kyle Anderson. So they have a good blend of youth and vets. It'll be interesting to see how their season progresses, and whether or not they go to the young guys more or the veterans more. So it'll be fun to watch as the season goes on. And next up we have the Charlotte Hornets. Charlotte came into last season with not a whole lot of talent on their roster, but they were still a pretty tough out for the majority of teams in the league, thanks to their team play and coaching system. So expect Charlotte to make a step toward becoming a playoff team this season. I think they're going to make it in the East, but we'll see. But coming back for them, they have All-Star MVP Devonte Graham. Devonte Graham won the All-Star Game MVP last season unexpectedly after he made his first appearance in the game. So Graham is really he's a pretty stout scorer at that point guard spot, and he's a pretty solid facilitator for his teammates as well. Really, he's pretty much exactly what you want offensively out of a point guard. He can shoot, he can score inside, he can score in the in-between game, and then, like I said before, he's a great facilitator. What you want to see him improve upon is his defense. As with a lot of young scoring guards in the league, defense kind of takes a back burner for him. He does have the athletic ability to become at least an average defender, if not above average for this Charlotte squad. So we'll see if he can make that improvement and really start to become more of a two-way player rather than just strictly a scoring point guard. But he did receive a 4-year, $88.5 million deal with Charlotte to come back. He was virtually coming back anyway. Not that there wasn't interest from other teams, but he just loves Charlotte and wants to be there and help them grow and become a much better team. So returning with him is Jonas Valanciunas. Valanciunas is on the last year of his deal. He's expiring after this season at $14 million, and he's a pretty skilled center in his own right. He can shoot the three ball with the best of them as far as stretch bigs goes, and then he's also a pretty solid defender and rebounder as well. But his post-scoring game is really where he shines. He's just one of those guys you dump him the ball down low in the post and you let him work and see what he can do. He uses that great size. He's 6'11", 265. He uses that size to really bully guys inside off of mismatches. And then if he has a guy that can match that strength, he's able to use his finesse and skill and his inside touch on that post hook shot and still able to score even over tough defenders. So Valanciunas, another starter for this Charlotte Hornets team coming back. I believe they return all 5 starters on this team, so it'll be great to see the continuity there and see how that starting lineup progresses together. But also in that starting lineup you have Miles Bridges. Bridges is also an expiring contract. He's at $5.42 million. What you love about Bridges is his sheer athleticism and size. He's 6'6", 225, just an amazing athlete, and he's really starting to become a more and more skilled player. He can shoot the three ball very well. He has a pretty solid inside touch. And then defensively, he's also pretty stout on defense. He's not an elite defender by any means, but he's a great team defender. Just a guy that you can always rely upon to give 100% effort every night. And he's only 23 years old, so he's going to be a restricted free agent after this season. It'll be interesting to see what kind of money he commands next summer, because a lot of teams would love a guy like Bridges who brings that shooting, athleticism, and defense to the table, and especially at just 24 years old, which he would be next summer after his deal is up. I can see a lot of teams trying to force an overpay for Charlotte here. But then at the two-guard spot, you have Dillon Brooks. Brooks has great size for a two-guard. He's 6'7", 225, and he is a very strong shooter for this Charlotte team, as well as a pretty tough defender as well. The ball handling skills aren't really there, which you kind of want nowadays as a two-guard flanking your point guard. You want a guy that can facilitate for others, as well as create his own shot. Brooks, he just more so creates his own shot. you'd like to see him get involved or get his teammates involved a little bit more on the offensive end. But what he brings to the table is excellent shooting and strong defense. Which is always welcome in a starting lineup. So he is getting a pretty decent contract. He's at 2 years, $27.52 million, and then he has a player option for 2023 at $14.72 million. So he's locked in for a while. If they end up having to give Bridges a ton of money, PJ Washington a ton of money, I could see them, and then also Cody Martin as well, I could see them trying to shop Brooks a little bit, but he is a very valuable piece to this team. And then rounding out the starting lineup, you have PJ Washington, their 4 guy. Washington is the best shooter on the team, bar none, and he's also a pretty solid defender inside as well. Not quite the size that you would hope at the 4 spot. In relation to his agility and his lateral quickness. If you have a 4 that's about 6'7", 230, you would hope that he'd be able to be a little quicker on the perimeter, but he really just uses his size to bully his way inside, as well as shoot over top of defenses. So he is a pretty solid defender inside. When he's out on the perimeter, it is a little more shaky though. Like I said, because he doesn't really have that lateral quickness, that horizontal quickness to be able to stay in front of guys. But he is 22, so he is figuring out he could really improve on the defensive end as he matures, as well as the offensive end. He could add a lot more to his offensive repertoire. So he's still on his rookie scale contract. He's making $4.22 million this year, and then he'll be expiring next year at $5.81 million. So again, that's another one of those guys that it'll be interesting if they command a huge payday in restricted free agency. But then coming off the bench, they now have Chris Dunn, their backup point guard. Charlotte really valued getting Chris Dunn this offseason. They wanted him last year, but it just never happened, as he stuck with the Bulls all throughout his fifth season in the NBA. But then he hit free agency, and Charlotte pounced on him. They got him for 2 years, $24.5 million, and then a team option in that last year at $11.5 million. So Chris Dunn really, they actually traded for Chris Dunn. As you can see, they still have his bird years. So that's really a solid trade for Charlotte as they shore up their backup point guard spot. Last season, I believe they had Jeremy Lin running some point guard behind Devonte Graham. So Dunn should be a great improvement for them when he's running that second unit, and he can even play next to Devonte Graham as a 2 guard even, thanks to his great defense. So Dunn, really a strong pickup for Charlotte. Also returning, we have Cody Martin. Martin is on a 1-year, $1.78 million contract yet. They do have his bird rights, so they can go over the cap to keep him after this season if necessary. But really, the Charlotte team, one thing that they've done is they've been very smart with their contracts. So I'm not sure if they're really going to necessitate having to go over the cap to keep Martin. Really, it just depends on how much he wants in free agency. And again, he's a very strong defender as well at that 3 spot. He can play the 2, and he's a decent shooter as well. Not really elite or even above average, but he's a pretty average shooter. Just one of those guys that you can't really leave open. But then they also have Harrison Barnes coming back. He'll be coming off of the bench, I believe, the majority of the time. He'll really be their leader off of the bench. He's 29, heading into his 10th season already in the NBA. He's been on Golden State, Charlotte, Sacramento, and now, Golden State, Dallas, Sacramento, and now Charlotte. He was part of that Terry Rozier deal that sent Rozier to Sacramento, and then Charlotte got Barnes back. So Barnes, he still has 2 years left on his contract, 20.28 million this year, and then 18.35 million next year. So his money does come down a little bit, which could really provide some cap flexibility for Charlotte next off season. But Barnes, what you get out of him is just he's a solid scorer, inside, outside, creating his own shot. He can do it all on the offensive end. It's just a matter of consistency for him, but he will be counted upon as their leader off of the bench to provide some strong scoring in the reserve unit. Another big acquisition for the Hornets this offseason was Zach Collins. Collins is 6'11", 250 pounds. He can play either the 4 or the 5, and he's a tremendous shooter at the 3-point line. So he is one of the better stretch bigs in the league. And then he can come down on the other end as well and be a pretty solid shot blocker for you inside. Not quite the rebounder that you would want out of a guy his size, but he really does use his size to his advantage on the defensive end in altering and blocking shots, as well as coming over on help defense and helping his teammates out on the perimeter. So he's a great pickup for them. I imagine he'll also be coming off of the bench as their probably backup 5, maybe backup 4. They did bring in Gorgui Dieng as well on a 1-year, $7 million deal, as well as Jay Crowder. So they really loaded up their bench with solid vets, as well as a young guy with Zach Collins who can really keep growing and developing his game even further. He is just 23 years old, entering his 5th season, and got a pretty strong payday from Charlotte, despite not a whole lot of production thus far in his young career. They're really banking on him taking that next step and becoming a starting level player in the NBA. But like I said, they have Gorgui Dieng coming in. He's 31, entering his 9th season. And again, what he brings to the table is strong inside defense, timely shot making along the perimeter, and then he's also a pretty solid rebounder as well. So I imagine he'll be the main backup 5 behind Valanciunas on this team. He could see minutes paired up with Zach Collins, Harrison Barnes, Jay Crowder, PJ Washington, even Miles Bridges could play the 4. So he's going to be a pretty versatile player for them. I think he'll be a high impact guy as he's exiting his prime here at 31 years old. I think he's going to have a pretty strong year and show Charlotte that he deserves to be here a little more long term as he starts to exit his prime, because even after his athleticism falls off, he's still a big body with great shooting touch and defensive ability. And then, as I mentioned, Jay Crowder joins the Charlotte Hornets. He comes over from the Utah Jazz. And he signed a 1-year, $4.76 million deal. He's also 31, so just in the tail end of his prime, at least athletically. But this is another guy who's just a great defender and again a timely shot maker. I mean, this guy can make some tough shots really when he needs it. So he'll be a great spark plug off of the bench for them in about 10 to 15 minutes off the bench. And he could even spot start for them in case of emergency, such as injuries or anything like that. He's just a great guy to plug into any role, and you'll get some production out of him. Rounding out their bench, we have Ochai Agbaji. He was taken with the 8th pick in 2020. Really hasn't lived up to that draft selection yet, but he did have a pretty strong season in his rookie year at about 7.5 points and 2.5 rebounds. He shot the ball very well from the 3-point line, so they're hoping that he can come in and keep shooting. at that elite level and keep growing his game offensively, so he's not so one-dimensional where he's just sitting on the three-point line waiting for a kick out. But defensively, he's pretty stout. He's one of their more agile defenders on the perimeter. So he can make some timely steals and in defensive plays, really when you need it. And he's only 21 years old, so there's a lot of room to grow for him. Then they have Daniel Otaru, taken in the second round of 2020 last year, and another guy that had a pretty strong rookie year. He was at 8.5 points a game and 7 rebounds a game, so he really was a surprising rookie standout. He was the fourth pick of the second round. Not really a whole lot of expectations for him, but he came in and provided a lot of hustle and some timely defensive plays for them. So hopefully he can keep improving as well. He's just 20 years old. Still a lot of upside for this guy, despite just being a second round pick. And then Charlotte, they also picked up Kai Sato out of the Philippines. He is currently overseas and likely won't see any playing time for the foreseeable future, even once he comes over to the NBA. But what they get out of him is a 7'3" big body guy. He's a little thin at 220, so you want him to add some muscle before he makes the jump over to the NBA. But he is pretty skilled. So hopefully they can get some value out of him. He's definitely worth the mid-second round flyer that they took on him. So that rounds out Charlotte. Again, a very well-balanced, put-together squad. They can really go about 13 deep on this team, 13, 14 guys deep. Obviously, you can only have 13 guys, but Charlotte really has built a strong team here. With Devonte Graham being their number one option, I'm not sure if they'll ever be a contender. They might need just one more star to put them through, and really put them over the hump there. But the focus here for Charlotte is making it to the postseason, and then I imagine they'll try and pick up a star in free agency next year using the momentum that they get from making the playoffs, if they were to do so.